The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
The shooting at Brown University unfolded in minutes but changed Providence for days. On a quiet campus near College Hill, gunfire erupted inside an academic building, sending students running and others barricading classrooms as emergency alerts lit phones across the city. Sirens converged, officers swept hallways, and the university locked down while hospitals prepared for the wounded. By nightfall, lives had been lost, families were waiting for news, and a shaken community gathered in silence. As dawn came, the investigation widened beyond the gates. Detectives reviewed surveillance, traced movements through streets and buses, and followed tips pouring in from the public. A shadowy figure captured on video became the focus of a manhunt, but certainly proved elusive. Leads were checked, a person of interest questioned, and then released, underscoring how fragile answers can be in the first hours after violence. Classes paused, vigils formed, and Providence held its breath. The search continues, driven by evidence, patience, and the urgent need to restore safety to a campus still echoing with questions. Tonight, we are live from Providence, Rhode Island, with the latest in the investigation of the Brown University shooter. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. This hour, we will go in depth into the case out of Brown University in Rhode Island. The search for a killer continues tonight. We've got all the latest details for you and analysis. Let's begin, though, by talking about two bright, innocent lives that were taken. The victims who lost their lives in this act of violence. You have Ella Cook, a sophomore from Alabama, member of the Brown University College Republicans, church-going, wonderful, passionate. People loved her, and people obviously heartbroken and miss her incredibly, and especially, this time of year. And you've got Muhammad Umerzakov, who is from Virginia. He's just a freshman. Just a freshman. Think about that, right? This is it. I'm heading off to college. This is my big year. And this young man, extremely smart and so disciplined and had such a future. I mean, two bright, innocent young lives taken that would have made a difference in this world. But instead, they were wiped out by evil. That's the only way to describe the killer. Evil. That's the only way you can put like one word on someone who would do what this killer did. This is not self-defense. There's no justification for this. Whatever the motivation was, whatever kind of point the killer was trying to make or thought they were trying to make, whatever's going on in their head, there is no justification. This is cold-blooded, premeditated murder. Period. Full stop. End of story. But the problem is, he hasn't been caught yet, but time is running out here. I've got to believe time's running out on this killer as we sit here tonight. With the spotlight on this case, obviously, number one, the danger still associated with it. We don't know who this person is. They don't know who he is. So how do we know he's not going to strike again? They've got to, and they have been putting the assets towards this now. FBI, obviously, on the case, the office out of Boston, so the locals are getting the help that they need, but time is running out. This killer has to be caught. There has to be some sense of justice and safety. Let's take a listen to the chief. This is from the Providence Police Department. That's where all this is happening, Providence, Rhode Island. Chief Oscar Perez, tonight giving us the latest.
As the mayor stated, we're about to show you a video. If we can have the IT officer play. Thank you, Joe. So as the mayor stated, if you don't have these videos, please let us know. And the reason we have shown these videos, there's a purpose, right? So as you can see, they're enhanced photos, there's enhanced video footage. And so we're asking the public to ensure that they can see them. They can see here that you want to focus on the body movements, the way the person moved their arms, the body posture, the way they carry their weight. I think those are important movement patterns that may help you identify this individual, which is extremely important. Another thing that we're going to ask the public is if you have any type of camera system, including Teslas, in your property. And this video that you just saw behind me, it all comes from the residential block of Waterman Avenue, Power, Ives, and Hope Street. And it's those residential areas that we're asking the public to look, if you have any camera systems or any Teslas, like I mentioned, that you look at that footage and that you can reach out to us and please provide us anything that you have. And we're asking you to go back at least a week to do that. And the reason for that is because on Saturday night, the day of, we actually learned that this individual was in that neighborhood at around 10:30 in the morning. We also know in this profession that many criminals will case out an area weeks and days prior. And so it's important for us to ensure that we can have you look at that and help us. And the reason for that is because our offices, our agents, are looking at terabytes of data. And we're looking for a moment that is shorter than somebody taking a breath. It's incredible hard work to do that. And so we're asking the public to assist us with that.
Fascinating on many different levels, right? Number one, apparently they're not knocking on every door in the neighborhood where they had video of him walking. That's number one. Number two, you look at that video between the jacket that you could see, the way they're walking. Yeah, I understand he's wearing a mask. But if you know that person, I've got to think you'd be able to recognize that person, especially because of the geographic part of it, right? Someone who's in Brown University or goes to Brown University or somehow associated with it or is in that area. I think you would recognize him. The question is, though, if someone knows who that is and they recognize him, will they make the call? Will they make the call? All right. Let's bring in Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson is joining us live from Providence, Rhode Island tonight at the Engineering Hall where the shooting occurred. Matt, thanks so much for joining us tonight. What else are we hearing about this investigation? There's a lot of, I think, frustration from the public right now and a lot of surprise in the way things have gone. But what's the latest?
Yeah, Vinny, frustration, anxiety. People are telling me that they're in fear. And then we're also seeing a lot more police presence. The intensity of this investigation is off the wall. We have seen a lot more police patrolling on the streets, and that's not only local, but state officers, as well as canine officers walking up and down the sidewalk. Not to mention all the FBI that we've seen here at this crime scene behind me. This campus shut down. Classes are canceled through the holiday. We have seen a lot of FBI agents throughout the day, pulling out a lot of boxes worth of evidence as they're trying to get to the bottom of exactly what happened here on Saturday 4 days ago, and still no arrests in all of this. And then that video, so critical to this investigation, that was released hours ago, a clear snapshot of, quote, a person of interest that they have yet to locate that might hold the key to all of this, if not be the suspect that is responsible. Police believe that the person could have been casing this area up to a week prior. And that's the reason why there's the call for action tonight, asking this community to review not only Ring and doorbell surveillance cameras in the area from businesses and homes that are wrapping around in this university, but also Teslas that may have cameras connected to them. Anything that could hold a clue and give a snapshot as to where this person, this suspect, could be and where they went. Up to a week before this tragedy unfolded, Vinny, because they believe that this suspect could have been casing this place here behind me for up to a week.
Wow. All right. How about the campus? You mentioned that it's closed down. What's been happening around the campus?
There's still a lot of people here. I mean, people weren't planning on traveling home if they live on campus until next week. There's no final exams. That's been all canceled. There are people milling around everyone is very scared and they're grieving the loss of loved ones. There's been 2 people that are killed in this tragedy. There's 8 others. We know now that there's a 10 total of victims in all of this, and those people are still recovering. The students, they're searching for answers tonight. There's a memorial on the other side of this building, this engineering building, that is growing. Just dozens and dozens of bouquets and flowers there for the 2 victims, 2 dead. We can't forget them. Ella Cook, who was a sophomore here, Republican Club at Brown University. She was a member of that, also a member of Alpha Chi Omega sorority. And then we have the other victim, a freshman, Muhammad Aziz Umar Zokov, and he was a dual citizen with Uzbekistan, biochemistry major, dreams of becoming a doctor, helping other people. Both described as being brilliant and beloved members of the campus. Meanwhile, with no arrests, the students are anxious. Earlier today, I spoke with a student who works in this building now turned crime scene. She says that she's in fear. She has a lot of questions. And then earlier today, we also heard from the university president. Let's listen to both.
It's definitely heavy. It makes me scared to want to go outside in the first place, but I just have like errands I know I need to run. That's why I'm out right now, but otherwise I really haven't left my apartment the past couple of days. I hope they do catch the shooter like quickly as soon as possible to restore some sense of like community with like, yeah, some sense of safety within the community.
Brown is deeply committed to the safety and security and well-being of our community. And I've been deeply saddened to see people questioning that. We understand that as time goes on, there is maybe a natural instinct to assign responsibility for a tragic event like this. Anxiety and fear is very natural, but the shooter is responsible. Horrific gun violence took the lives of these students and hospitalized others. And it's deeply sad and tragic that schools across the country are targets of violence. Brown is no exception.
All right, and in light of all of that, it's not just here, Vinnie, not just here at Brown University, the epicenter of this latest school shooting that has increased security, but also Yale and Harvard. They're stepping up security as this suspect is still at large. And again, one of the main questions that everybody has, of course, why? What was the motive in all of this? And we don't know if there was any connection to this university, if this was a former student, a current student, or had any connection to any of the victims. All of these questions still unanswered at this hour, Vinnie.
Yeah, Matt, walking around the campus there, I mean, you're at the scene, right? The building there. Yep. I mean, I'm thinking about this. Does it seem like it would have to be targeted? Would you have to know about this building, or would you just randomly go into this building? Like, I don't know what the layout is of this whole campus.
It feels like an open campus, as universities really should be in America. And you're able to walk on. There are other businesses. There are houses where people may not be associated with this historic university. This is such a gem in this Boston, New England area. And there's a lot of history here and homes that may not be associated with the campus, so it feels open. This particular building that was targeted, this engineering complex, we heard earlier today that there is a part that was an addition that is newer, and there were more cameras in that area. But where these victims were and where this shooting took place is in the older wing of this building. And for the most part, even on a Saturday, from what I can tell, you can get access to these buildings. It's something that's being reviewed by this university.
All right, Matt Johnson in Providence. Thank you so much, Matt. All right, let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight, criminal defense attorney Josh Colesrud, along with former law enforcement officer and host of the Strong Enough podcast, Claudia King, and national parenting and family relationship expert, Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Great to see everyone tonight. Claudia, let me begin with you. Are you surprised that we're sitting here without an arrest? Are you surprised there's not better video? Are you surprised there's no video from being inside the building where the shooting took place? Is this shocking to you, or is it just us, the public?
I'm completely shocked, Vinny, to be honest with you. In this day and age where there are cameras literally everywhere, how are there not more shots of this individual where we can get a better look at him, his gait, as you mentioned before? It's completely shocking to me. And I'm sure that the police right now are backtracking his movements through cameras to see if they can get to a point where he gets in a car, goes in a house, something like that. But I mean, this has gone on too long that we don't have a solid suspect at all.
Yeah, Josh, I'm thinking about this story, and there's similarities to other ones. This almost seems different than a school shooting. And I'll tell you why. This reminds me also a little bit more of the Idaho 4 killer, where someone comes onto campus. They may know their way around, they may not, I'm not sure. But there seems to be a level of targeted, of where he went or she went. I don't know. He's wearing a mask. But it just seems like it was more specific rather than random in the way I look at school shootings. But I may be wrong. What are your thoughts?
You're looking at it exactly the way that you should. So there's two sides of the coin, right? There is the motive, which is what you're talking about, but you also have to look at the parallels to similar FBI investigations. So what other high-profile FBI investigations can we look at? Well, we have the Charlie Kirk assassination, and there are similarities to this case, not in motive necessarily, but with the investigation itself. So in Charlie Kirk, they did find a weapon that had distinguishing characteristics about it, and supposedly they have the same thing here. Also, in Charlie Kirk, they didn't know who the person was when there was the so-called manhunt, and the FBI really had to be bailed out by the defendants, the suspects' parents in that case. So in this case, the FBI is really hoping for a bailout because that $50,000 reward isn't for somebody who's going to recognize this grainy picture. It's going to be for a family member or a friend who recognizes what this person has done, and they turn him in for the $50,000. So I think we have to look towards the investigations, the similar investigations. Also, look at the January 6th bombing. That's another situation where you had grainy pictures, and they didn't know who it was, and they had to do geofencing to eventually track down the person. So that may be another thing that we're looking at here.
Yeah. Dr. Sue, I'm looking at this and saying, $50,000 reward, yeah, that sounds okay. Brown University, $8 billion endowment. Throw a couple $100,000 out there and give someone some incentive to get this person off the streets so your students aren't scared out of their wits.
Yeah, I don't understand this at all. I was thinking the same thing when the $50,000 came up. This is an Ivy League school. I'd be giving $500,000 to bring somebody in. I don't understand this. And by the way, the other thing that she said is, they're looking at this to beef up their security. Vinny and everybody else on this panel, I think, will agree that every college needs to beef up their security now, because every single student that's attending a college and a university today, unfortunately, can be a victim of a killer like this. And I'm at my wit's end because, I have a son in college, 20 years old. This is scary to me as a parent, and I'm sure it's scary to every other parent that is going through this at Brown University and all these other universities where this has taken place, and wondering today, am I going to send my student back to Brown for the next semester?
Yeah, I went back to my law school over the summer. I couldn't get in the front door. Yep. I said, I'm an alumni. No, we can't do it. Finally, I found a professor that knew me, and they got but it was like a whole thing. And I was like, I'm glad that they're doing it like that. All right, and I'm glad the think tank is with us. They're staying with us this hour as we dive deeper into this story. Coming up next, we're going to take a look at these videos of the suspect and break it down, take a look at the body language. What does it reveal? Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan investigates Rob Reiner was Hollywood royalty, a filmmaker who brought laughter and heart to millions. But behind closed doors, tensions in his family were rising. How did a heated argument turn into a tragedy that would shock the world? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
As you can see, there are enhanced photos, there's enhanced video footage, and so we're asking the public to ensure that they can see here that you want to focus on the body movements, the way the person moved their arms, the body posture, the way they carry their weight. I think those are important movement patterns that may help you identify this individual, which is
This enhanced video much better than what was released previously, and we're going to take a look at that body language. Just want to let you know the Maya Hernandez jury in the Brazilian cosmetic filler trial, the jury's gone for the day. They deliberated for a little bit. They went home. They'll be back tomorrow, so make sure you're watching as our Verdict Watch continues on that case. In the meantime, let me bring in our special guest to help with this body language expert, host of the podcast, In the Driver's Seat with Janine Driver. Janine Driver is back with us. All right, Janine, great to see you. I've got a series of videos of the person of interest, suspect, whatever he is. They keep showing us the video. They want to find this guy or girl, I don't know, is wearing a mask. So we'll take a look at them one at a time, and you tell me, as we're watching the video, what you're looking at, what you're seeing, what's important. First video is at 2 o'clock, and this is about 2 hours beforehand. What are you seeing here?
Okay, so he's looking around, and some people think, well, this is suspicious. What this is measured environmental awareness. This is not a fear-based movement. Fear-based movement, what happens here is usually our hands are binding like this tight, and we look back quite a bit. So as a pre-assault indicator, this is not a pre-assault indicator. This is not fear-based movement. This, to me, is someone kind of scoping out the neighborhood. It is measured environmental awareness as he's looking around here.
All right, let's move forward now. This is about 4 minutes later. Again, this is almost 2 hours before the shooting.
All right, now we heard earlier, Vinny, about this movement pattern. This is incredibly important. I'm one of 36 movement pattern analysis profilers. There are 36 billion different ways that we are moving our bodies that connect to how we make decisions. And so this is why the police are releasing this footage. If you are a family member, or if you are a neighbor of this person, if you used to work with this person, this is why family can say, I knew it was my daughter before I even saw her or heard her voice. We saw this in Baltimore with the shootings that happened with the riots. This one kid was about to throw a brick at a cop. She was standing behind the cops, behind the shield, and she came up and like beat the living daylights out of him. How did she know that was her son? Because of this movement pattern. This is very strategic of the police, and we're lucky to have this footage. So look what's happening here. His gait, how his hands are moving. I'm hoping in a second you're going to show me his hands behind his back, because what we're seeing here with the walk is intentional movement versus automatic movement. This means to us, Vinny, and you at home, the brain is engaged in managing his body. He's either thinking deeply or managing stress, and he doesn't want to draw attention to himself, which is interesting because here's the footage we're watching. Here's the deal, Vinny. The gait is hard to fake. It is highly individual. So you can, this is what I like to say, you can mask that face, but not the pace. So you can mask the face, but not the pace. And a study was done where they put lights on joints of our body and videotape people moving and walking in a dark room where you could only see the little lights moving. And family members could identify their family based on lights on a black screen. And strangers could say, that's a man, that's a woman. They could talk about their mental state, what are they thinking, simply by watching dots move on a screen. That's how important the gait is. Are you going to show me hands behind his back?
Yeah. Here, this is now 208 to 209 in front of the Rhode Island Historical Society.
All right. So again, we have a little bit of that pacing. He's looking around. Now, his hands are behind his back. We see actors do this sometimes when they're nervous. Angelina Jolie will do this on the big stage. She says she's more comfortable in the roles than she is as Angelina Jolie. But we also see military and law enforcement walk or stand with their hands behind their back. It says, I'm not approachable. I don't want to be disturbed. More importantly, Vinny, and you at home, this is not common civilian baselining for us walking down the street. How often, Vinny, do you walk down the street with your hands behind your back? Let me tell you, never. So the arms, when they are removed from a natural swing, this is self-regulation or containment. This is Odd right here, walking with his hands behind his back. So thanks to movement pattern analysis and the patterns of this man moving, I will not be surprised if we start to get some leads, Vinny.
Okay, now we've got, we're going to move ahead about 5 minutes. This, again, is at 2:13. We're still you know, the shooting is in the 4 o'clock hour. Anything here?
So here we're getting some big strides here. So as he's walking, we're getting some big strides. Now his hands are engaged. And this kind of pace, this is the movement that family members are going to be like, wait a minute, I kind of feel like he looks like my neighbor. I think I used to work with that guy. It's not just the pace, it's his head. Look at his head. It is on his shoulders. We say someone has a good head on their shoulders, it's center. He's not walking with his head tilted. He's actually walking slightly with his chin up, as if he's looking down his nose at us. So this tends to be a sign of arrogance when we see people talking like this with their chin up. So we've got him looking around, paying attention, walking. We can kind of see his hands here. They don't look like they're binding to me, but he has gloves on, so it's hard to see that.
Let's get to another one. This one has no time stamp on it, but here you get a better shot at the hands.
Yeah, so here his hands are relaxed. Again, so this is not a fear-based walk. This right here is controlled movement, and this is his way of like just walking about and looking around. So there is no stress here at all. I think that sometimes people think when we see footage, we're looking for anxiety or stress or panic. We're not seeing pre-assault indicators here. If we were, we would see those turns around from the back. We would see lean forwards. So when people lean forward, be careful, because that is a potential attack. Or if someone is looking and they suddenly take a step back, Vinnie. So what I like to say is a step back, get ready for attack. So if you're ever talking to someone and they're up in your face and they take a step back, many people start to relax, but be careful, the person could come back with a punch. So this is not pre-assault indicator walking or movement. This is controlled, non-common civilian baseline when he puts his hands behind his back. Otherwise, this looks like anyone else just kind of walking down the street. It's the movements that connect us, though. This is why family members will always say, I just knew it was my husband. I knew it was my sister. I felt like if you're ever in the airport, Vinnie, you look and you're like, I feel like I know that person, but you didn't even hear their voice or see their face. It connects with movement pattern analysis, which is connected back to World War II when they did all kinds of studies, and it's 98% accurate. So how we are moving our body can tell us things about how we make decisions in life.
All right, let's move the clock forward now to about 2:51, and there's a difference now. He's carrying a bag, so something happens between the last video we saw and this one, and there is a time jump here. Now he's got a bag. What are your thoughts on these videos?
Yeah, let me see this, Vinnie. It's the first time I'm seeing this. Is the bag in his right hand, or is his right hand in his pocket? Okay, yeah. All right, so now he has a bag over his chest there. A second ago, though, it looked right there. I see it. His right hand is in his pocket. Now, keep in mind, it's a cold day, but he's got one glove on. Maybe he has a glove on the other hand. We don't know because we can't see it. When, though, we are analyzing people and one hand is in the pocket, it often sends the message, I'm holding something back. This is why when I'm hired as a corporate keynote speaker, I say to leaders and salespeople, in meetings, don't put your hands on your lap. For the love of God, I want to see him. Bring him out in a steeple. Use an open palm gesture. We want to see someone's hands. Why? This says I'm not a threat. His hand being hidden here in the pocket, that's a concern for me. Because now I'm like, okay, what's happening here? What's he holding back? Is this just him comforting himself? Who knows? But here's the deal. We need to be careful with turning observations into accusations. We don't know if this guy did it or not, but we certainly know the police are interested in talking to this guy. And I can see why. And
identifying him as well, obviously. He hasn't been identified yet. That's the first thing. Got to get a name. They're saying if we don't get a name, how are we going to find a person? All right, Janine Driver.
And my prayers go to the victims' families, by the way. My prayers go to the victims' families. So sending love your way.
All right, thanks so much, Janine Driver. Appreciate the insight, as always, in the driver's seat. All right, let's bring back in our think tank, Josh Colesrud, Claudia King, Dr. Sue Kornbluth. Any thoughts about what we saw in all these videos? And specifically, Claudia, I'll start with you, the bag, right? So he's walking 2 hours before, no bag. An hour before, he's got this bag now.
Yeah, so what's interesting to me is where did the bag come from? And again, there are cameras, or there should be, everywhere. As you said before, they're on Teslas, they're on buses, they're at stoplights. So I don't understand why we can't backtrack his movements to see where the bag comes from. But I know we don't for sure know who this is or that he's the one that did it. The bag is certainly suspicious, and it would lead me to believe that this is his weapon, so he is getting ready to attack at this point.
Dr. Sue, what are you seeing here?
I mean, I'm seeing somebody that's wearing a mask, that's hiding themselves. I don't understand why he's wearing a mask. It's outside in the cold. He's also dressed, in dark clothing. He's looking around. But Vinnie, here is the biggest question of all. I understand that he is a possible suspect. Where are the camera footage at the building where supposedly somebody walked in and killed everyone? Where is the footage from that?
Yeah, they said, we don't have as many cameras in the old part of the building. All the cameras are in the new part. And that almost tells me that...
That's a real problem.
That maybe he knows the building pretty well as well. Josh, how about from your perspective? What does this video tell you in this timeline? The bag, no bag?
Well, gait analysis has its functions, but it's certainly limited. What this is, it's not just an identification tool, it's an elimination tool. More than anything, it's showing us what the suspect is not. So here, we can see a lot of things. You can see the color of his skin. You can see his body proportions, the way he walks, the comfort in how he's walking. But you know what? This is really for the people that know him, because an average person looking at this video isn't going to identify anyone. But somebody who knows the suspect and sees this video, that's what this is for. Now, this is, again, assuming that this video is the person who did it. I want to hear from students in the classroom identify that this is the person who they saw in the classroom. This is the same person wearing the same clothing, the same body size. I'll feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that, only because the FBI was so wrong with the original person that they identified as the suspect. It kind of ruins, to a certain extent, the credibility of their investigation, unfortunately.
Yeah. Ends up being an episode of Law & Order where they arrest 3 or 4 people, charge them, and then it turns out to be the 5th person. All right, stay where you are. When we come back, we've got more on this shooting suspect and some of the interesting things that have taken place during the course of this manhunt and investigation.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
So there's cameras in the hallway, but they don't show the suspect, or Brown is not releasing them, or you're not releasing them to us. How does a multi-million-dollar school not have a bunch of cameras in the hallway?
So let me try to explain that. So, as President Paxton knows, there was a major addition put on that building within the last 5 years or so. That is a modern building attached to a much older one in the back. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me, at least, that there are cameras in the newer part of the building. And there is video footage, okay? So there's the back part of the building, old part, and front part, new part. The shooting occurs in the old part, towards the back, out towards Hope Street. In that older part of the building, there are fewer, if any, cameras in that location. I imagine because it's an older building. So as students are fleeing the area of the shooting into the new part of the building, there are cameras in that brand new building that show that chaos. But the only video of the presumed, anticipated, suspected, however you want to define it, person of interest, you have it. We would release it if we thought it would be helpful in identifying this subject, because we are relying on the press and public to help get us there. There would be no reason for us to hold it back.
It's puzzling, to say the least. But at least they're sharing the video with the public and trying to get some help in all of this and admitting that they need help. They absolutely need help here. Still with me, Josh Colesrud, Claudia King, and Dr. Sue Kornbluth. So there's your answer, Dr. Sue. Are you satisfied with that answer?
Nope.
No,
I'm not satisfied with it at all. I was on that campus last year with my daughter touring it. It's a very old campus, but it's funded very, very well, and I cannot understand for the life of me why there is not cameras on every single building on this college campus. They have money for other things, but how about the safety of their students? It is extremely concerning, and I think that every college campus should take a lesson from this, because we have to do more to protect our students and put cameras on every other building, because I think whoever did this cased out this building and knew there were not cameras there. And I wonder what the other panel members think of this as well.
Go ahead, Claudia.
I agree with you, Dr. Sue.
Claudia, who wants to speak?
I agree with you, Dr. Sue. I think it is very possible that this individual did choose the location because he did know that there aren't cameras there, or there are very few cameras there. I also want to point out the whole mask wearing. We're 5 years past COVID, but it's still normalized that somebody's running around in a mask. And that really shouldn't be the case. That should cause people concern. And he was able to walk around all day long looking like he does, and nobody was concerned. So I think that's a problem as well.
Let's take a listen to this. This is, again, the police talking about the first person who was detained and questioned.
Shortly, we will be releasing the person of interest who had been detained earlier today. And the Attorney General can speak a little bit about the rationale for that. But we want to inform the community that that individual will shortly be released from Providence Police.
This person of interest will be released. And I want to make sure that we all understand that this was a very complex investigation, and it still is. So in the sense, we followed on a lead, and we followed on this specific lead, but we're able to examine every single evidence that led us to this individual. And at that point, that's how investigations work. Investigations will tell us whether something is valid or not, whether something needs to be ruled out. It's not a mistake. It's just how investigations work.
Okay, so they had detained someone, they lifted the shelter-in-place order, and then they had to, I guess, put it back in place because the person was not the correct person. Josh, this is also confusing for people as well. When someone gets detained and questioned, it's based on something, right? But it turns out to not be correct. And I get it, in trying to find someone, you're going to follow every lead. But I'm surprised that it was a lead that really pointed to someone, and they seemed confident at the moment until they weren't.
Well, it's kind of been, unfortunately, a signature of the current FBI to prematurely release information that later turns out to be incorrect. But, I can't fault them for getting the wrong person, per se, because that's what happens in a mass shooting. You go where the evidence is, and they had evidence, although it didn't turn out to be the right evidence, that this person was responsible. I want to see that. Yes, they were wrong, but they're trying. They're going after. They're chasing down leads. I like the effort, and when they're transparent about their investigation, this is how stuff works in real life. Rarely do you get the right person right off the bat, and so I think we have to be a little bit forgiving here. And also regarding the video surveillance that you guys were talking about, I think that it's kind of a red herring. What is the video surveillance inside the classroom really going to show us that we don't already know about this individual? If he was wearing this stuff inside the classroom, it's not going to help us identify him. It's going to be the same type of gate analysis that we already talked about. So I think we're kind of overblowing what that video would have shown us.
Yeah, although maybe an indoor video of everyone who enters the door or exits the door, cameras coming in and out, you might get a better shot, and people might say, oh, wait, that's my TA, or, oh, that was the guy who graduated last year, or that's the guy from the deli down the street. Josh Colesroot, Claudia King, Dr. Sue Kornbluth, great to see you. When we come back, I'll reveal something else you need to know. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, he gave the world timeless stories, yet his own home became a scene of unimaginable horror. Rob and Michelle Reiner were found dead, and their son Nick is now in custody. What drove a family to the breaking point, and could this tragedy have been prevented? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board, and what do we have? The latest photo shoot for Luigi Mangione in court. They don't allow motion pictures inside the courtrooms in New York, but they allow these photos. So these are some of the latest pictures. He's in there trying to suppress evidence that shows his guilt, wants to keep it away from the jury. And the judge said that hearing hopefully will end by the end of this week, and it's a huge one. If the judge does not allow the evidence, prosecutors have a very uphill battle. If the evidence is allowed in, bad luck for Mangione, because it is strong evidence. Okay, take a look at your television screens. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Darius Gillis Rainey, just 16 years old, missing out of Roxbury, Massachusetts. If you see Darius, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference, 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Boston Police Department. Numbers on the screen. Let's see if we can get Darius to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. With another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.